Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs, Dr. Contrast Live. I hope all is well with everybody. I know we've got a title up there with the product form studies, but I just thought we'd take a minute here, and we spent a lot of time over the last 3-4 weeks putting together a series of a Mantis series long-range bomber plan, and for the last 3-4 sessions we've gone through some of the design studies and sketch rendering and so forth, and looking for ideas and some concept work to get this bomber squared away. And finally, I think it was about 2 streams ago, we just kind of hit on some cylinders, all firing with the right proportion and getting everything down here, and getting into a final format for the actual shape itself. So last Thursday, I put together a final line drawing, and I began to put some staining into it and some color and concept variation in it. This is the final product that we didn't get a chance. So I think I finished up most of the marker and the pen and the definition work, but I didn't have the background in. So this is the final composition we put together with the background in place, and hopefully really received well. I mean, that was a real journey for me. A lot of learning going on, a lot of real good juxtaposition of getting things organized on the proper scale, right, the proportions right, and the drama of the view and some of the forms and surfaces. Wanted a real clean, simple look at it here, and I think we finally arrived at that. But this is the final composition in attack mode, and then in addition to that, I think we did also just a little bit of an elevation study to show you. Let me show you for a minute here. Elevation study to give it some sense of scale and proportional, like at ground level. And I think the big this gives you some idea what the scale is here with the individuals by the front landing gear strut. And but I think the real key to this whole thing was, and again, I hope he's listening. If he doesn't, maybe he tunes in later on today. My sincere thanks to Captain Nemo for pointing out a very interesting facet that changed the entire complexion of this whole process, and that was getting the cockpit from above into the lower area, so the bombing system here, and then getting back to the white belly surface of the actual manta ray. So Nemo, again, thanks so much for your input. Really, very, very helpful. This whole white lower from the underside, and then the very dark upper. But again, this was done just to give us a presence of the idea of scale, putting some human element to it, and some idea of the girth and the level at it we're at here. So that was it, guys. I wanted to bring up just the 2 final studies that we did there. So that wraps that series up. And then today, I'm just going to go into a real simple series of what I refer to as just really loose gesture sketches, going back to almost basic fundamental thinking here. And I think it's always healthy, from my point of view anyhow. I always like to go back to some basic systems and thinking and just putting together some sketches together. And let's go back and just look at some very simple. Just going to go real loose here. Ballpoint pen. We get this thing to work here for us. Ballpoint pen, and just go through some really quick little form studies here. Just really gesturally. Nothing really elaborate. Just simple shapes. Drawing through some things here. Then getting these forms to kind of run through us here. Nice and loose. In a minute here, we'll take a little bit of time, maybe put a little bit of color and some texture into these things. I just want to really generate some very interesting little form studies here, just looking at different ways to create shoulders, getting ideas and shape down and the like, and let it go with that. So just very simple. Up on top, circle down below. I think notice too, one of the things I really enjoy doing, going through these exercises, is getting into the idea of generating the shape and drawing through surfaces and getting an idea of what the forms are made of and what the context of the architecture of the bone structure is. Big difference. So let's kind of go back and we'll kind of carry on here a little bit. And drawing through it. Getting into the base. My little secondary lip through here. Let me turn this aside from over here. We're just going to turn this through here. Turn this around. Get that little bit of a form shape in there. And take that little secondary accent here and just putting the center line through it and just getting a little of this and a little of that and just kind of breathe through it. Section through it here. Bit of a relief button there, perhaps. Let's just going to knock that in. Basic shape. Let's turn this in here and get the form down. And just let it go with that. Again, just now we're going to start to connect the dots here with a little bit of some contour work here. Let's go back in again, get the form down. It's nothing really definitive here, just exploring shape and geometry. Yeah, a little bit of an insert piece in here. Some button graphics, a little bit of sidewall material. Going to connect the dot again, draw through this thing, kind of bring the forms together. And then notice a lot of activity, just drawing through the thing and getting an idea what the shapes are doing and just getting different positions for buttons or recesses and add-ons and the like. So we're just going to turn this around just for a moment here, put a little more emphasis in here, and just put a little bit of a base to it. Let's kind of put a little bit of some structure to it here. And again, let's go the other way. Let's go positive with this thing. Really quick and simple. There's one page here set up side. We're just going to go ahead. Let's change gears here. Go to start with the ballpoint pen. Let's put a little bit of tone in this thing now. Let's get into some really quick little studies here in terms of putting some texture into this thing. Just a little bit of texture work here. And really today, for me, and the value of this practice for me today is just getting back to basic thinking and not overbearing some of the shapes and deals we work with here. Just getting it down to simple little essence. And let's get back into this. Maybe just a little bit of color added here. Getting some line strike. Turn this thing around just a bit here. To define some of the shapes. There's A. Just got to get that one laid in there just a little bit here. Let's go back into this guy. A little sharp stick here. Real super simple. Let's just run that across. Put an accent line there. Put a bit of that recess in place. Now, these objects can be any number of things. I'm not really giving them a category at all. Just looking at form and shape, just kind of exploring through some of the geometry of the shapes itself. It could be remote control switches. It could be on-off switches for buttons. It could be voicing systems or lighting systems. Just looking at different elements of shape here to deal with here. We kind of turn this around just a bit here. Get a bit of line weight thrust. Change this up a little bit. And put this in a little bit of shadow. And then come back into highlight as it comes out of that negative area here. Again, let's move it around a bit to get some little bit of form in here. Take that in, and a little bit of color definition here, just to kind of shows where that break is here. That's that up on top, into that little highlight, and just take this shape right on down the line here. And there's a second facet over here. Let's put this recess in here. More weight. Oh, there's a second little study here put together. Just again, simple little form to work with here. I'm going to go back to that one we just started here. I'm going to line right in this guy to give it some strength. Turn this around here just a bit. A little more core in this thing, a little more strength. There it is. Get that shadow to sit down nicely. Same thing in this guy. Let's go back into this one. Same process. Let's go back in and just tone it in. Walk through it first. And back in and pick up where some of the accents are. Now in this case, let's reverse it out. Let's get a little bit of the dark side up on top of this thing here. Pencil definition in here to kind of give a little bit of presence to it. And I'll let it escape. A little more definition in here. And last but not least, a little more definition in the drawing here. Gotta get this in place. A little more line thrust in here. A little button recess here. Cut line. A bit of highlight to read up on top of that shape as it comes over the top of that waterfall, that radius, and then in that little form right there. There's another little study here, just putting together some basic shape. Just gonna put them more solid into here. There it is. There's 2 or 3 of them. Just kind of form studies. Last but not least here, just surround this bit here. And a little bit of color, and we got it. Let's get this guy lined up here. And there it is. Just play one here. Let's put a little bit of contour. Let's get these guys connected just a bit here. So there's one way of just looking at how to generate certain forms and shapes and moving it around in space and getting an idea of what the contour lines are doing and how to illustrate what they're doing with light source based upon them. Just basic fundamental thinking here, just to do some really quick little form studies to get us activated and back into the practice of being able to really. I think the real content for me is learning how to see through a shape and how to begin to develop a form nicely and taking advantage of what's its construct? Is it circular? Is it rectangular? Is it more geometric? Elements like that make a huge difference. I think the more I practice things like this, the more you take this survey of this kind of understanding in developing very complicated forms like space industry vehicles, automobile design, product design, of a variety of different interior space. Furniture design, I mean, it's endless. So I think that's one of the nice things about putting together just a simple little study like this, where you can go back into just basic generic form studies, just treating things with light source and then getting some character down makes a huge difference. Let's go back and we'll just keep going here. Let's just get the ballpoint pen out, get back in again. Real lucid. And real quick, just exploring shape, surface, how to break into it, how to add certain little tone surfaces to it, shapes such as this, and just putting pieces together. Pardon me. Hey, how you doing there, Shadow? Just as how you doing, Chief? How are you? 21 months. Wow. Hey, hi, Doc. Good to see you. Can't believe this has been that long. I can't get over it either. 21 months. Is that right? Jeez, 21 months for tier 1. This is for 21 months. Jeez. Boy, Shadow, I can't believe that. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate the time spent doing so. Phenomenal. So just go through a real simple series of form studies here. I don't know if I had a chance to let's go back and review for a moment here. I started off the stream here, Shadow, with just going back to, this is where we were. Here's the final study on the long-range bomber study here. We'll just take bring a quick break and bring up to speed of where we were. That's how we started. Went back in and just showed the review here where it all began and ended. Interesting thing. Last Thursday we wrapped up just the basic color study and stuff. And I added some of the background in. So we're ready to fly with that guy. That was just completed. And in addition to the in flight mode, we went ahead with this guy too. We just put together the studies of in elevation to give us some sense of scale. Make it fly. Yeah, it does fly off the page. It helps. It really does help put into context. And this one was done just to give us an idea of scale. And the thing that was great about this was Neem was input by the white underbelly in this thing and giving us some real sense of scale. So that's what we're after in terms of that elevation. It gave it a sense of presence and human scale. It really gave it some idea. This idea of how large this thing really is. So when all is said and done, I think for me, that was just a tremendous to make that the centerpiece of the. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that'd be a neat thing to do. I don't think it's got the presence to do so. I'd be happy to work with you on that when we get a chance to do so. But I think the really neat thing about what the learning curve for me on this program, this long-range bomber, is really good. I began to see how to begin to really change the scale of certain things, how to begin to move in from one element to another, how to add detail. And the image I had from the very beginning was one that was very smooth, even though it was a bomber system, but had the scale to it, had the intimidation factor to it, but it wasn't overly busy. So I think we've got it. Boy, pardon me, I'm losing my voice here. Let me start to really get some things put together here nicely. So that was the wrap up there, and then go back to what we did today. After that series, I just thought I would go back in and just do a very simple series of what I refer to, just a real quick little form study. It's more of an empathic exercise, just to get right back in. Get back into just basic drawing skills. So this exercise is getting back to some normalcy, just some very simple little quick sketches to get things back in again. Then we'll maybe pick up some subject matter based upon once we get past this guy on Thursday. So let's go back and look at some just basic shape studies here. Let's go back in and just give a little bit of color in this here. Get it all in first. Get the forms down, essentially to get them to read. Nice and simple. Just very gesturally sketches. I'm not getting into a lot of detail, just to get the forms down, roundness, into where the light source might be coming into play here. And taking this whole concept down a little bit deeper here. Let's get some line thrust in this thing now. Gonna ground this guy a little bit. Let's put a little bit of base on that thing. Kind of settle it down just a bit. Back in through here. Let's add a little bit of this. Secondary halo. Just changing the shape as we go here. A little bit of cut line in this thing. And come back in a little bit of color. Hey, let's start somewhere. Basics never bad. Perfect little slow cockpit. Yeah, great. Yeah, you have to start somewhere. You're right, Shadow. Again, just after that long run there with that bomber study, I thought we'd just go back in and get some just basic thinking down, just a little bit of highlighting and a little bit of color added to some of this stuff. And let's change gears just enough to give a little bit of a highlight here. Let's go back and get some little recess in this thing. Looking at surface, nothing really particular. There's not a product in line here. Nothing in mind. Just getting an idea down and getting into good old-fashioned basic simple thinking here. And a little bit more definition. through that. And so there, just again, easy as we go, just to get this idea of what shape is doing, how line begins to work, and what forms are doing. So I hope you've been well. I know you've been very busy the last couple of times we've chatted, Shadow, so I hope you're doing well. A little more tone in this thing here. Get back to it. There it is. Just enough to give it a little bit of presence to it. Just get it out of it. And now let's go back into this one. Basic surface. A bit of a change of pace. We're going to scallop on top of that form. So it's going to come up like so and blend in. Very sensitive area here to work with, but nonetheless, get that to read just a bit. Going to take that shadow in here. And real simple. Just making changes on the fly here. Nothing really specific in terms of design pattern. I'm just getting a shape down, then breaking into it, and then putting some little contour together with it. Software testing for a major release is extremely time. I don't have much time to give you. Yeah, I know. It's got to be overwhelming. Unbelievable. So it's good to have you here today, Shadow. So thank you for taking the time to come in. Let's put a little more contour in this thing to make it more spherical. Let that shape read just a bit more. Let it blend into that form there. Let's just take a little bit of tone over the top of that thing now. Take this thing, come right on down the pike here. There it is. Just real sensitive, simple shapes. Nothing magical. Module in between here. Shape to read a little bit. Keep it nice and simple. Get that cut line to come through here. Oftentimes, the simpler the push, the better. We just come back in here, keep it nice and gentle, move it up, and get into that form to read just a bit. Same basic theme, just to break it up just a touch. Recess it. Back through it again, a bit of a band here. And again, a little bit of relief inside here. And last but not least, a little bit of a color accent. Again, real simple sketches just to kind of give us an idea of where we are as far as, again, form, adding on certain things, compounding shapes, recessing them, adding things on. Just good exercises, get things down in terms of putting together a story here. They're just basic sketches. So I'm just going to connect the dots here one more time. There it is. And so far, so good. Let's add a little bit more contour down below here. We got it. Just a touch more shadow back on this side here. There it is. A little more core. Get that thing to warm over the top here. Real softly. And so there's two. Got two down here, just nice and easy. For the last plate here, we're just going to roll through some things. And let's see where we're going here. Let's kind of get here. There's two. Put these aside for a moment. Real gesturely, real nice and loose. Basic forms, just exploring. Going through them. Point to explore them. And last but not least, we'll just put a little bit of tone to these guys. See what we come up with. Again, just basic shapes. Whoa, Chip 7. Whoa, we're doing powered by Chip. No, not necessarily pencil sharpers, Chip. It's, hey, good to have you on board, Chip. I just started out doing a series of very final little form studies. You're going to be back to basic thinking about adding some geometry to it all. Nice stuff here. Let's see here. I don't know if you saw this at all, Chip. Let me go back for a moment here and review again. This is where we started today. You were very kind enough to join me last week in a couple of sessions on this long-range bomber program. So I left it last Thursday with just a basic marker stain and got the basic surfaces down, but didn't have the background and final detailing. So this is what we ended up with as far as final color. Chip laid the background in and just really put it all together with the three squadron plan of attack mode here. Nice stuff. Hey, Captain Nemo, how are you, man? Good to see you. Good to have you on board. No, you're not late at all. It's just good to have you on board, Captain Nemo. I just went back and I started out today with a little bit of a form study, just basic drawing skills to get back into the habit of drawing through and seeing some problem solving to be done here. But I'm glad you joined us. I want to thank you and Chip and everybody else, Shadow, all of you on board here today. For really taking the time to be with me over the last few weeks with this long journey to get this bomber squared away. And what it ended up with was this is the final composition there, Captain Nemo. Thanks to you, this whole concept of getting that cockpit underneath was just absolutely golden. So this is a tribute to you and your input, and again, really helpful and extremely appreciate your time and effort spent, as all of you were putting some input into this whole program. So there was the attack mode, and just for what it's worth here, went ahead last week, didn't get to finish. We finished this, the show today, and then I also added this one too. This went right back into, there's the elevation study that gave us a sense of scale, entry egress. And again, notice again, Nemo, thanks again to you, that whole white underbelly, getting that cockpit down below, making a huge difference in the stance of this thing. So really thank you for your time and effort. So what do you think, gang? Are you buying that? Let's see, Shadow stated here, we'll be making this bad boy. Yeah, we're going to actually make this thing in scale. It'll be a lot of fun. Boy, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Thanks, Chip. Again, a lot of time and effort to get there. Not to be redundant with it, but it really was interesting how when I started this program going after a Manta system and this long-range bomber, everything looked like fighter jets. I had a real struggle to get through some of the scale down, and just interesting how it all comes together. Finally, we broke through on some basic plan form work and getting the wings spread out and get some girth and some substance to this thing. And it all fell together in the last 2 or 3 sessions, so it was really neat to see that happen, guys. And what I'm going through today, just for what you're enjoying me here, and those who came in late, I just started out, as a result of going through that bomber study, I just went right back and said, maybe it's time to go back and just refresh the thinking cycle here and just do some, what I refer to as really fast generic sketches, just basic product form studies. Nothing really specific in terms of subject matter, just getting back to ideation studies and basic shapes and drawing systems to kind of draw through some things, add shape to it, go recess, add things on, and just go through the exploratory side of drawing through and being very lucid in the sketches themselves. And I think it's really, for me anyhow, it's very important for me to do this. I go through a series of getting very technical and very, very rendering oriented, but I always like to go back to just basic thinking in terms of gesture sketches, whether it's, yeah, that's right. That's how you get the basics. You get those basics down, gentlemen, all of a sudden all those pieces come together, because we could take any one of these shapes and forms and begin to apply it to some sort of a product cycle, for example, less generic than what we're talking about here today is form studies, but you could take these things into any form of graphics, interior space, architecture, product design, transportation design, you name it. It's very interesting. Is that the specific application? No, they're just shape studies, really, Captain Nemo. I just went back and just did some very exploratory. They could be an appliance study, for example. They could be light switches. They could be on and off switches. They could be monitors of some sort. I don't know. I just wanted to go back in and just do some basic round shapes, form studies, adding recesses, adding things onto them, taking things away, adding a little bit of contour, a little bit of color to them, to get back to basic sketches. So that was the first one we did. Then we went to the second study where we just got, again, very simple forms themselves. It's just neat to work with. But what I'm concentrating on here is just sensitivity of line and form, getting some of the subtleties and the shapes down, and getting the forms to read. Interesting how it all begins to just, it doesn't take an awful lot. But if you understand how line weight works, and I don't, I'm still studying it, as well you are. But the more you begin to study it, then the more you begin to see how it all begins to come together, and what line does, what shape does, what shading and light will do. These are all exercises I go back to constantly for just the idea of keeping it fresh. and not assuming that you've got it all down to a science, because there's so much to it. It's absolutely terrifying. So that was the second plate we did. I just laid out a third ballpoint pen set of studies. Clinical, or at least it could be biotech. It could be that, absolutely. Some sort of device in the medical system. And again, that's one of the nice things about doing form studies. There's no real category to hit, but you're using it as an expansion to kind of go back and look at them and say, oh, what if we did that? That'd be kind of neat to apply that to a medical device of some sort. So what I did is I back up just to start with the ballpoint pen and came back in here, and I'll go back here very quickly. Just a whole series of things just to get the forms down. And again, being very lucid here, just kind of put some shape in here, draw through it, and come back in and just pick up where the shapes are. And pick it up, move the top, add a little bit of tone in here. Model through it. Notice, we use the side of the pencil just to model the forms down quite a bit. Now we'll come back and pick up some line weight here to separate some of the sharps, some of the forms out here. The majority of these sketches too are just inventing shape and surfaces to kind of look at, just to kind of see and explore. What would happen if you had a cut line? What would happen if you just left that shape alone? What would happen if this became just a little section change? And keep that very clean and simple. I mean, these are all exploratory pieces that become extremely helpful when you begin to move into certain things like more technical or more illustration work or more product-specific design work. So let's come back in here. I'm just going to kind of work through these shapes. It's phase two. It's just getting it down here. I apologize out on the, yeah, it just kind of comes right out of the way. It really kind of opens it up. And again, I really don't want to apologize. I'm not apologizing. I just really think it's important from my point of view. I go back to these basic exercises often to just kind of keep it fresh. What am I going to apply it to? What's it begin to look like? What do I want this thing to see? How do I begin to utilize this material for future reference and the like? It's just good to go back and get those fundamentals down and keep really hammering home that, because that's where everything, if you want to make things complex, keep them simple. If you want them simple, make them complex. I mean, you can actually go back and forth and make things happen as a result of going through a lot of form studies such as this to make a huge difference. So I'm going to go back here and just sharpen the stick for a moment. I'm going to get these guys wrapped up here just for a second. Tone it in, big broad brush, run that through, get that shoulder in place, let that go just out on top here. Notice I'm using the side of pencil for an awful lot of modeling work. Not enough time to really take the time. We always work like this, but it's really important, I think, to work like that, because you use the full weight of that lead to begin to illustrate and develop shape and form. Huge, huge, huge difference. Let's go back in there and just get this down, a little bit more texture in this thing. Just blocking it in. Now we start to accentuate. We want to sell where that shadow is underneath here. A little bit of the shoulder. Let it taper off that highlight. Bring it in. And the shadow again. Just kind of stain that through. And back to side of pencil. Model this in. Just basic generic form studies. Nothing more, nothing less. Just looking at an idea and shape, just to generate forms. Let's go back in through, just get that little graphic line in there. Just bring that center line right on through. Tone this thing. What do you think, gangs? This can help? I mean, again, just basic generic sketches that begin to really develop a surface of, okay, maybe down the line we'll use some of these shapes or these forms, develop some really neat new stuff. So let's see what happens here just for a moment. Let's go back in here. Let's turn this back into light source. A little bit of an accent tone there. Come back and just pick it up a little bit like so. And for what it's worth, just going to connect the dots here. A little bit of a linear tying together for these guys. A little bit of touch here, a radius to work. There it is. There you go, guys. There's a family of three forms. Just, yeah, it's really interesting how that all comes together here, guys. So, yeah, I'm not a real big fan of just assuming that everything's going to work out okay. I think I'm always behind the scenes. When I don't go live on Tuesday and Thursdays, I'm in here in the office just drawing and practicing certain things and certain systems throughout the course of the day. And I know I've got an obligation to run this program to kind of deliver as best goods that I know how to, and I want to be very fully prepared. And this is one of the best ways of preparing this whole process of getting into this doing. In addition, like form studies for products, speed forms for transportation design, just not thinking about a certain context, but just putting shapes down and challenging yourself to kind of define them and understand what the shapes are doing and illustrate them properly. A big step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, to make sure that every time I go live, for example, on Tuesdays, that I'm well prepared to deliver the questions and concerns that might come up over the course of the presentation. Really interesting stuff here. So just to show you how that might work, let's do this. Let's see. It's a family of forms here. We started here. Started here with that guy. There was plate one, just basically could be anything. Like the Nemo said, are they actual medical devices? No, not really. They're just, again, it could be applied to anything. It could be switches, it could be light systems, it could be devices that on and off switch. I don't know. There could be product categories. Ad infinitum. So there's the first plate we did, just to go back through a series of those guys. That was number one. Then we went to that family of forms. That was secondly of all here. And then the second plate, again, basic. What I really like to really develop and really understand is very compound shapes, especially spherical and round forms that are grafted onto. For example, this is a good example of grafting on a rectangular shape to a very round pill form. Same with this guy, just adding certain things onto it to make sure the transitions are right and the sequences are correct. So they're well illustrated or well thought out. And I've said this several times. I hope I'm not being redundant here. But to me, drawing is more of a thinking process. It's not so much visual. It's a thinking process. What are you starting to see? What is it made out of? What is its construct? It goes back to, again, we've done some exercises on basic volumetrics, which I might go back to in time to come here. How they operate. And when you begin to combine those forms and do integration studies, enormous changes take place as a result of understanding what light does on them and all the other things that are just really, yeah, each line stroke is a thought. You're absolutely right, Shadow. Everything we do, for example, your business, Shadow's business, Starship's, Nemo, and the chip, anybody who's listening, we're all in that business of doing the visual things that become very powerful. And the more we understand the language of that visual system, the stronger our presentation work is going to be. So there was plate two we did, and the third one was this guy here. It's kind of interesting. Just to see how it might apply here. Let's take this guy. What would happen if we did this? What if we took that shape right there? Let's take that guy right there. And for future reference, we're doing some high-speed commercial traffic work. Let's do this. What if we did that? What if we did this? Now, there's one variation of how that might apply to something like an overland carrier, express carrier. That shape just expanded and just broken down a little bit and give more application could lead into, for example, things like that. So what do you think, gang? Makes sense? See where we're going with this thing? And again, basic form studies begin to tell us how to begin to develop some of these shapes we're dealing with here. And I think the thing that's nice about going through these processes, for example, this is a high-speed transporter. So if I can begin to add the rest of the cab here, what that does is just kind of dovetails nicely into this. And there is the actual cab area right here. It just kind of connects right there onto this little system here. And then the rest of this is all could be, and again, we can come back down to get the form ready. And again, the rest of the areas are right there. There you go. What do you think, guys? There's the application. We started there with those little form studies and said, oh, there's a good exercise about just putting shape together. All three, for example, again, we started here. Let's go back and review here just real quick before we wrap it up. We started here by doing the following. Just form studies, just looking at basic shape, adding on, grafting in, going recess and adding on, and then again, now, that's form study 1, form study 2, just getting generic shapes down, and form study 3, third page. From that third page, we said, you know, what if we took down the line, let's say a project came along, we're doing some high-speed overlanders, for example. A new cab design. Right away, that form right there expanded, could begin to look like that. There you go. There's its companion right there. So you take that same basic shape and just change the architecture just a little bit, but you've got a solution to, again, another very interesting form study for in terms of putting together something that was very abstract and non-committal into something. Oops, let me drop this down just a little bit here. Let me go right there. And right there. So that's where we are. That form, we could take any one of these, and this one would do the same. We could take any one of these form studies and begin to apply them. And I think that was the value of me going in today and kind of stepping back a little bit and just getting very generic and very basic to get exercises back to the thinking process. So, Captain Nemo, you still there? What do you think? Chip, thank you for the input there. It's not awesome. It's just you go through it, you do it as well. It's just basic thinking. How do you apply this stuff? It's how you see it and how you begin to apply it that makes all the difference. So, what do you think, Captain Nemo? Making sense? You approve, we're all good. Chip does, that's a good start. Shadow does, that's another great start. But so far, so good. What do you think there, Captain Nemo? Got it? Are you still with us? Hopefully. If not, we'll just kind of not delay the fact here. But again, I can't thank you enough, gentlemen, for joining the forces here. Smooth. Yeah, it's just a really interesting set of circumstances. Now, we can abbreviate some of this stuff and make it work, but we're looking at theme. We're looking for direction, look for inspiration. And the best way to get there is to forget about, and I've said this a million times, I hope I'm not saying for the millionth first time to bore you to death. If you want to develop newness, go back to old-fashioned architecture. Take advantage of the things that are out there. Pressing matter away from the screen, but yeah. And what we did here for a minute here, Nemo, was this: we took one of the examples, even though it was an abstraction, nothing really generic about, nothing really specific about it, and got into the whole idea. And the whole idea between going through these form studies is to develop a lexicon or a vocabulary, shape and form, and understanding, being to apply it. So once I went through that 3 sheets, I picked this guy here and said, you know, what if we did this? And I began to apply the variation on theme. So from that basic generic form, we developed an overland express cab. There it is. That's how you begin to apply this. What do you think, Nemo? You like that? Yeah, I think you're right, Shadow. The comment you made here about you can see the theme between the two easily. Yeah, the theme begins to really develop itself. And I think everything we do here, for example, it has to have an end. It has a beginning, it has an end, but the ending is infinite. It just keeps moving, it keeps changing all the time. So I think that's part of the fun here of putting together these processes together. So with that thought in mind, dear gentlemen, would make a cool computer. Yeah, it would. That's not a bad idea. Again, that's the beauty of the whole process, I think, Shadow, is getting these form studies down, being non-committal, not giving it a subject matter, but just opening up shape and surface to deal with. Makes a huge difference. So I wanted to say this in closing. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining the forces today. I hope you had as much fun with this one as I had. It's always good to have you on board, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Thursday. We'll maybe pick a little bit more of a subject matter. Might go back to some basic transportation or something of that nature, maybe architecture. Have to put a little plan together for Thursday. But again, thank you so much for the time here, gang. Always good to have you on board. And please take a moment to visit my website at drcontrast.com. And I think Shadow can echo this for me. things coming. We're starting to put some apparel line together, some automotive stuff, some Star Citizen stuff. It's all coming down the pike here, so it's going to be really cool. Always a pleasure, likewise too. Shadow, thank you for being on board. Chip as well, Captain Nemo, marvelous to have you on board, guys. But again, take a look at my website, drcontrast.com, and just neat stuff to kind of work with here. If there's something there, I've got a nice 9-lesson drawing program that might be of some help to you. And I would appreciate just a quick announcement here. I would really be nice to, if you enjoy what we're doing here, pass the word on to some of your friends and associates. I'd like to keep building my audience here. We're doing very well. I'm very happy with the progress being made. In fact, I'm honored to be a part of the process. Just really interesting. And likewise, Nemo, thank you for your input on the Bomber series. That was pivotal. So don't lose me, man. I mean, you're my wingman now. Great stuff, Nemo. Thank you. And again, please drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com if you have anything you want to add to this program and so forth, or want me to deal on certain things. I'd be happy to help you there in some instances. And last but not least, never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Enjoy yourself, gang. We'll see you on Thursday. Take care and all the very best. Thank you.